Hello, everybody. We are here to help once again, Gordon Dill with consumer expert Diane Lee. And Diane, as parents, we have all struggled with that issue of when do we allow our children to get a smartphone, something I'm glad we didn't deal with as kids.
Yeah.
And now we're probably also a lot of us struggling with how do we keep tabs on not just a smartphone, but whatever else our children are doing when they're online and we're not right on top of them.
Yeah, and Gordon, I have a 13-year-old, so this problem is definitely real. And I really wanted to help parents out in this story to see what avenues are out there to be able to protect ourselves and what apps should we make sure that are not on our kids' phones. Check it out.
With new apps that pop up just about every day, it's hard for parents to keep track of what might be harmful to their teens. I'm 7 News consumer anchor Diane Lee with a local teenager's honest insight into what parents really need to know.
The endless and enticing array of apps are all in good fun until they're not. But don't take our word for it. 16-year-old Reese, whose parents prefer we not use his last name, has a candid take on how some apps can leave teens vulnerable.
Like on Snapchat in particular, all the time I'll get added by some random person and I don't know who they are. And when I talk to them, they're like, send me a picture of yourself, give me this other social media account that you have. Where are you from? Where do you live? What's your age?
And while Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram dominate the news when it comes to apps and teens, Reese says it's the ones parents haven't heard of that can be most dangerous.
If you want to go onto Wiz, I could go on right now and probably find multiple people who would come to my house to interact with me in multiple different ways. And it's disgusting and it's strange, but it's true. I could genuinely in 30 minutes have someone at my house.
Wiz is a meetup app that claims to transform how young people connect, share, and grow together.
A lot of kids will use it to find other people that they would like to interact with in an inappropriate manner. I've heard of a lot of people who go on there just to find people to hook up with, and they're underage.
Law enforcement agencies throughout the nation have released a top 21 list of apps parents should know about. Some specialize in social media, others specifically dating. But what most share in common are the messaging features that allow teens to connect with strangers.
There are also the type of apps that act as a vault where teens can hide content, leaving parents locked out of hidden media.
Calculator is one of several secret apps used to hide photos, video files, and browser history. The App Store is full of dozens more. Rick Floyd, head of information security with the Greenville County School District, says the key message is parents need to monitor their kids' phones.
Are you hearing about strangers reaching out to kids, or what's the reality there?
Yeah, it's not uncommon when I'm talking to children and I ask how many of you have communicated with an online stranger, like playing games on the apps. Almost every child in the school that has that app and admits to having an app raises their hand.
One way to monitor is through installing a third-party program like Bark.
In 2023, we analyzed over 5.6 billion data points and found that consistently the top most dangerous apps for children included the ones they're using all the time, right? Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Discord, Spotify, Tumblr, even apps like WhatsApp and Kik. The list goes on and on and on.
Bark Chief Parenting Officer Titania Jordan says of all those, the most concerning is Kik, which allows anyone to contact and direct message your child.
Kik is a cesspool. It is horrific.
As for monitoring, Reese says an open dialogue about dangers is more productive than parents exerting too much control, which he says may backfire with teens.
At some point in your life, every single person who uses these apps will experience something dangerous. And if you can't handle that situation, if you're not educated on how to handle that situation, it's going to go poorly.
Okay. First of all, Wiz.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that a dating site for children? Is that what is that?
That is certainly not what they advertise it to be. They advertise it to be connecting kids together or connecting really anyone together. It definitely is geared more towards the younger generations. And Gordon, the point of me bringing out Wiz was not to say Wiz is the only bad app or Wiz is the worst one in the world at all. In fact, there are probably many good qualities about Wiz. But the point of me saying this is that there are so many apps that we may not know about as parents that our children and teens use to communicate with others that really don't have those stopgap measures in there and those safeguards. And that's why we as parents really need to know what's on their phone and who they're communicating with.
This is the day I learned that Wiz existed.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea about this.
Right.
And I get, look, I'm not as young as I used to be, so all of this stuff is kind of new to me. But the idea that apps like that exist that are there for the sole purpose of helping children get together in real life, especially since we know how much predatory behavior there is online, that's scary stuff.
Yeah, and I think if I were with Wiz, I would say, well, our sole purpose is not that. But I think what's happening is that, teenagers are teenagers, Gordon. We knew how it was to be a teenager. You're going to use resources that you have to do what you want. You're curious, to explore things. But during the course of my interview with Reese, he did actually explain a scenario that he knew of a teenage girl that had used Wiz to meet up with a guy during school, and she left during school in his car.
Okay, see, that's
it's scary.
That's what we're afraid of here.
Yeah.
The other half of this is, as a parent, the thing I always wanted to do with my daughters was trust them, give them space. I didn't search their bedrooms and stuff like that. But it almost sounds like I do these days with younger children need to be sort of digital police with their activity. Is that really what we're saying here?
I do think so. I will caution, I like the final words that Reese, a very intelligent teenager that we spoke with, had to say, which is that there is that fine line because you really need to teach your teenagers how to properly use this, knowing that whatever you say, they're going to experience it, right? At some point in their life, at some age, whether it's now or in college, they're going to encounter advances online. And they need to understand and see the clues of what is legit, what's not, what's perhaps someone trying to lure you into something, and, and the safety involved. So yes, I think to one end, you want to teach your teens and show them the trust. But on the other end, and I think it's increasingly more important, obviously, in this digital age, we really do need to have the safeguards. To that end, you don't necessarily need to download a program, though they are very, very helpful, but they do cost money. I mean, even just something, and I'm going to just demonstrate here on my own phone. Okay, so if you go to your settings, like let's say you have an Apple iPhone, go to your settings, and you go down to screen time. This is one thing that you can do to just limit the amount of time that your kids spend in an app.
Very brave of you, by the way, to show everybody how much screen time you do.
Yeah, I've done 1 hour and 9 minutes on average.
Quite good.
I might have two phones, so that's probably inaccurate. But anyway, okay, so then you go down to app limits there, and then you can go to any of your apps and you can set a limit. So do this on your children's phone, and if they're playing too much, on their video games or whatnot, you can set that per app to make sure that they're not spending too much time. So that's sort of one way also to control the digital onslaught. It's not necessarily a safety feature, but little things like that can all add up.
No, if they're going to max out their time, at least you've got some limits on there.
Right.
It's all still very scary here. So you mentioned 21 apps. Let me pull that up.
Yeah.
Here. So here, let's get that.
And this was something that, law enforcement really across the country kind of came up with. And as you're pulling this up, Gordon, I will just preface by saying that
I think I've crashed that part of the website.
Oh, no problem. Maybe we can try it again. But yeah, so, and if you copy that URL and put it in the URL, there you go.
We're doing this live, folks.
There we go. Exactly. Hey, live TV. But when you look through this, again, I will say that this is not the final list, right? Again, Wiz wasn't on this one, and we did learn how dangerous it can be. Kick is, if you scroll down, that's the one that Bark mentioned that they're very concerned, and that they literally called a cesspool.
And some of these are straight up dating sites.
Oh, yeah. Some of these are straight up,
Bumble
right?
and Plenty of Fish. These are literally dating sites.
Grindr, exactly, right. WhatsApp is a very common one that it's a chat app that it basically just allows you to connect with people, and it has disappearing messages if you want. TikTok, we all know. The reason why Snapchat and these kind of things are on here is just because they really can allow your kid to share content that's difficult. And to that end, let me just say that if you haven't had a conversation with your young teenager about sharing inappropriate content and also the scams that are there to lure in people to share inappropriate content. For instance, Reese told me stories about what he called hot young girls reaching out, saying he looked great and trying to start a conversation, and pretty soon they would ask him for a photo. And, you know, we probably know he's a great guy. I'm sure there's lots of girls who would love to date him, but in truth, many of those times it's somebody else. It's not necessarily the person
that
who's
sounds like a
contacting
straight
you.
up sextortion scam,
Exactly.
frankly. Yeah, which has become more of a problem out there.
Definitely.
It's good advice, actually, to talk to your kids about all of those obvious scam red flags that we see again. The friended by a stranger that was mentioned in the story. That happens to everybody who uses Snapchat. You get those random things. They're almost all scams. But the red flags that indicate scam for a lot of things are going to be the same for your kids on social media.
Yeah, and that's why Reese was saying have that conversation with your kid. You don't necessarily need to hover over them, but those continual conversations about what types of scams are out there and what might happen if they reach out to strangers and what kind of information is okay to divulge. I mean, it's again, so scary to think that there are kids that he knows in our area that have released their home address to meet people. That is just a parent's worst nightmare.
that part of your story absolutely floored me. I almost paused it and just.
Well, and that's why I really appreciate he had a lot of courage to speak to us, because you can imagine at this age, you know, friends are going to say whatever. Right. But it was a true gift to us as parents. It's a wake up call. Yeah. And last thing, one of the 21 sites is called Hot or Not. I don't think that's right for anybody's age, but the internet, man, boy, I tell you. It's cruel, Gordon. It's definitely cruel.
Wow. Okay. Diane Lee, that is our consumer expert, and we have been talking about how to keep an eye on what your kids are maybe trying to stay out of trouble online. Great advice. We'll be back with more good ideas right after we take a quick break. And welcome back. We are here to help. Consumer expert Diane Lee still with us, this time to talk about something that I remember being a weird deal in the local news. When people were getting packets, do you remember this? Packets of seeds in the mail, just randomly, that they didn't order, they didn't buy, they just showed up in the mailbox. And that was indicative, as it turns out, of a much larger scam. Yeah, it's called a brushing scam. And at first everyone was like, why are we getting these? And what we figured out was that they're lightweight. And that is the key to this scam. We're going to tell you more about it and talk more on the other side.
Mysterious packages showing up on your doorstep. It was all amusing until the homeowner started getting charged with no way to return them to Amazon. I'm 7 News consumer anchor Diane Lee with what this unusual scam called brushing is all about and how Here to Help stepped in to set the record straight.
Under any other circumstance, a mystery delivery might be intriguing if it weren't so downright disturbing.
So originally we received about 7 or 8 boxes. We did consolidate it down.
Evelyn Romano in Greenville says these packages of 10 humidifiers, 18 tins of bath bombs, and 38 solar lights showed up on her doorstep months ago with no explanation. Even before the delivery, she got this concerning email confirmation. But what really alarmed her was what she saw when she logged onto her account.
I'm watching them add these items in real time, watching them add the gift card, and trying to, go in and cancel things and change it as quickly as possible.
Romano says Amazon assured her they would cancel the 4 large orders. But when the boxes arrived, she realized the bulk of the bogus purchases went through.
Of course, the first thought is just return it. And I would love to do that, but it doesn't show in my order history. And so I have no way to initiate a return.
At first, Romano didn't think she was on the hook. The scammers had used a stolen credit card. But when that wouldn't go through, her card became the default.
Unfortunately, we are left with a lot of items we don't want and a really giant charge.
So you're really in a catch-22.
I am. Yeah, it's been very frustrating for sure.
So how does this happen?
Did you see a lot of fraud?
On a consistent basis.
For that, we bring in Chris McCabe, who used to work for Amazon investigating sellers' accounts. He now runs his own Amazon seller consultancy called E-Commerce Chris.
So how does this work?
They're trying to game the review system. They're trying to accumulate additional positive reviews for items that are shipped. It looks like it's a real order, but it's not actually a real order from that buyer. They're just trying to net a 5-star review out of it.
McCabe says the scam, called brushing, allows dishonest sellers to create reviews that are not possible without a delivery. The orders don't even mimic what's sent because the lighter the weight, the cheaper the scam.
This type of scam was first reported on e-commerce sites in China and then resurfaced when people across America started to get unsolicited packages of seeds. All 50 states sent out a warning about the mysterious mail.
Not all brushing scams hack an Amazon account, but even after password updates, Romano had to get not one but 4 new credit cards as the hackers continue to access her account.
So I ended up with 3 charges, and so it could be upwards of close to $4,000 of charges that we've received for these random items that we definitely do not want.
And for 5 months, Romano has struggled to get Amazon to return the funds, the retail giant even telling her bank, quote, the activity is valid.
What is your advice for when you call in, if this scam has happened to you, to be the most effective?
You want to mention to them this is a seller side issue.
McCabe says that wording is especially important since Amazon customer service is a separate department from seller investigations. To protect your account, set up multi-factor authentication and use a unique password. With the wisdom of hindsight, Romano also wishes she had immediately removed her credit card from her account.
We figured that if this just went through as fraud, we would probably just donate it all. And so that's what we would love to do, just to get rid of all of the boxes.
And fortunately for Romano, she will get to do just that. 7 News here to help reached out to Amazon with the evidence that she gave us, and the company has returned her funds.
Wow. Okay. So did we talk to Amazon about what they're doing to stop this thing? Because this would drive me crazy.
Yeah, so Amazon is aware of the issue, and basically it's a difficult situation. It really depends on consumers reporting it. Again, when you call in, it's really important for you to describe this in the correct way and use that terminology. It's a seller side issue. Make sure you're transferred to the people at Amazon that handle seller side problems. But it depends on that. I mean, obviously Amazon has a lot of stopgap measures with this. This does not happen to everybody, but even since this story aired, there was someone else in my neighborhood who this happened to and said, didn't you do a story on it? And I sent them the link. And, so this kind of stuff it's an ongoing situation, just like so many scams out there.
Yeah, I mean, the seeds thing, I guess obviously you do remember the seeds since it's in the story, but that went to lots of people just in our area, those seeds showing up in the mail. So the idea is they send you the seeds because they don't weigh anything to put in shipping, and then they generate reviews for whatever. So there's it's a product swap. They're generating fake reviews for something else.
Exactly. So the key is that in order for any review to generate through Amazon, one thing has to occur, and that's an actual delivery. So if you're a scammer, or even if you're a business and want to boost your reviews, and then you send a really lightweight product to a lot of people, then you have the opportunity to kick in that review process and then write a whole bunch of bogus reviews.
I see. And now that allows, in this case, probably a scammer. I mean, they're stealing money from the woman in your story.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the key. So this story can occur 2 different ways with a scam. One, they can actually steal money from the victim, which is what happened to the woman, as you said in this story. But the other one is where you just receive a whole bunch of random stuff, but you don't necessarily notice funds are drained from your account. If you'll remember in this story, they originally tried to use a different credit card, a bogus credit card, and that didn't work. So they had obviously stolen someone's credit card number and were trying to use that first. And then they were able to kick into her credit card situation, or at least Amazon defaulted to her credit card, which is why if you notice any activity that's odd in your Amazon account, really the first thing that you should do so it doesn't get out of hand is to take that credit card off for the time being until you get that problem solved.
Someone in my household has a credit card linked to an Amazon account. Is that something is it too risky to do that? Should I just be typing that in every single time?
That's a good question. I would say not necessarily. I mean, brushing scams are fairly common, but not so rampant that you want to, if you're a frequent Amazon buyer, that might be annoying to have to pull out your credit card every time.
Sure.
However, what you really should be doing is keeping very close tabs on your email notifications. So I get one anytime I buy an Amazon, or I love to set up with my credit card company, I get notifications, a text right when I spend anything. Mm-hmm. So I would recommend that everybody set that up through their credit card company. And I set it at a $1 amount. I don't care how much it is. I want to know if anything is spent on my credit card. Therefore, I can look right away, see the notification, know that I indeed spent that, and be fine with it. If I didn't, I can call my credit card company right away. If it was purchased at Amazon with my card and I didn't do it, that's when I would also go to Amazon, take off that credit card number.
And to that point, a good idea that the woman in your story, I saw she used a credit card. A debit card card, that money might be gone. So
Yeah.
you have a lot more protection if you're using on these online accounts a credit card.
Right. I'm so glad you brought up that point. Even if you don't necessarily need a credit card, they are so valuable. You can just pay them off every month, and that is the way to do it wisely. But they're so valuable just for fraud protection because they don't draft obviously right away from your debit account, from your bank account, whereas a debit card does. And you have to fight for that money back, and you don't always get it when something is taken from your bank account. Whereas you can definitely make an argument with your credit card company, and usually most people do win if they haven't made the purchase.
Is there, I imagine in a lot of these cases, this is an international scam. I think the seeds were an international scam, right?
Yeah.
So there's got to be limitations on enforcement. I mean, all these humidifiers that are shipped, is that just junk now? Does she just have a stack of humidifiers?
I mean, she was left with all of that. Again, her plan was to kind of donate it. She did get her money actually back from Amazon, and I believe she did donate it. Though I will say, as one little caveat here, as just a little, funny thank you, she actually left me a humidifier with a little smiley face on it saying thank you, which I thought was very humorous because obviously, neither of us had any need for it, but it just was a reminder. Long story short is it does originate from overseas. So Gordon, when you explain that, it's important because people have to know that it's very difficult to fight these scams. It's hard enough when it's an interstate situation, let alone between several countries.
Yeah, and another thing I think we're going to come back to on a lot of these scams again and again, but for them to have gained access to her account, that must have been a compromised password, right?
Yeah, we're thinking that's probably where it originated. So a couple things to keep in mind. The password for your email, certainly. Keep in mind the password for your Apple iCloud. Those are places that they can kind of get into your cell phone and figure things out. If your password is the same for your email as it is for your Amazon account, which it was for her, that's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't say it enough. Have different passwords for different accounts. Maybe if you can't remember everything, then at least have that delineation. Anything having to do with money, make sure that all of those passwords are different. And certainly for your bank accounts, do not share that password with any other application or whatnot that you log into.
Yeah, and in fact, you showed an iPhone earlier. iPhones will do randomly generated, very difficult, secure passwords and save them right on the device. So there are ways around this that you can maybe make it a little more difficult for these hackers.
Yeah, you can. Just don't lose your device.
Don't lose your devices. That's always good advice. All right, so we've been talking about brushing scams, something that unfortunately appears like it's going to continue for the near future, but at least we've got some tools to protect ourselves. Diane, our consumer expert, thank you so much. And we appreciate you joining us. Here to help, we've got another episode coming out next week. We hope you'll join us then.